All right, everyone, we'll call. Whoa, uh-oh. Sorry about that. We'll call this meeting to order, the Murraysville Council, Wednesday, March 4th, the regular voting meeting. Can we please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance?
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, can we get a roll call?
Mr. Olszewski,
Here.
Mr. Diakopoulos, Mrs. Ling,
Present.
Mr. Lemak,
Here.
Mr. Corns,
Here.
Mr. McKenna,
Here.
Mr. Miller, Mayor Dice.
Here. All right, next we'll move to announcement of any unlisted amendments. Michael or anyone on council, anything that's unlisted? Nope. All right, that moves us on to the consent calendar items. Can I get a motion for that?
Make a motion to approve.
Second. Thank you, Michael and Matt. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? All right, those minutes pass. That moves us to comments by Mayor Dice.
Hey, Michael, there we go. Firstly, once again, the AARP is having tax prep services. You have to make an appointment.
I don't think you're on. Oh, yeah, yes.
You have to make an appointment. The number is 724-374-3780. The remaining dates are March 13th, March 27th, and April 10th. No walk-ups will be accepted. And again, this is occurring at the Murraysville Community Center. Next up, we have the Pleasant Valley Landfill. Residents may take pretty much whatever they like, do the Pleasant Valley Landfill at the below dates from April 20th to the 24th, 6 a.m. to 3 p.m., and then Saturday, April 25th from 7 a.m. to 11 a.m. And there are 2 permit passes available at the reception desk here starting March 2nd. There are permit passes available starting March 2nd. After that, we have the curbside leaf collection program coming up. There's a 20-bag limit, and there is a sign-up sheet, and it will occur on Saturday, April 25th, and please make sure to sign up in advance. Next up from there, we have the glass recycling pop-up collection event occurring Saturday, March 14th, 2026. Veterans Field parking lot, Sardis, 4200 Sardis Road. Encouraged to bring your glass for recycling as well as anything for the local food pantry, loaves and fishes. After that, we have a blood drive occurring at the Murraysville Community Center on Wednesday, March 11th from 1 p.m. to 6 p.m. Please stop by and donate blood. I know they always need that. Okay, next up, probably the most fun one, the Ages 4 and Under Easter egg hunt occurring at Sardis Park on Friday, March 27th at 1 p.m. This is a Easter egg hunt for the youngsters. You can get more information and register. Spaces are limited at murraysvillelibrary.org. Next up, there is a scavenger hunt occurring for all ages at the wetlands area at Murraysville Community Park. Also, we'll have the all kinds of eggs and other QR codes that they can scan. Prizes will be awarded. This is occurring March 2nd to March 31st, so get out there on the trail and take a look. Next up, we have Jumpstart Sports Pittsburgh. It is a local organization with registration open for youth basketball and youth soccer. You can take a look at it right there, and I'm sure we have links on the Murraysville website. And that'll do it, except I do have one other announcement that I got in the mail, if I could. It says, and someone needs to correct my pronunciation, I think probably Wes, Mr. Andrew Nugget? Well, I'll just read it. It is that Mr. Andrew Nugent, Murraysville resident and constituent, was honored as the Grand Marshal at the City of Pittsburgh Veterans Day Parade. He was featured in the Murraysville Star, Tribune Review, and guest on KDKA TV and radio. His story is extraordinary and inspiring. He was recognized and honored by the City of Pittsburgh and Allegheny County at ceremonies where he was presented proclamations. Mr. Nugent was also recognized by Penn Township in the Norwin Elks Lodge. Mr. Nugent has not been contacted or recognized by any current individuals from around here, so I just wanted to make sure that we as Murraysville just acknowledge what he did and what he did for our country. So, thank you. That'll do it for my announcements. Thanks.
All right, thanks, Mayor.
If someone can correct my pronunciation, please do.
All right, next is comments by Chief Administrator. Mike, anything you have?
Yeah, just a few items. An update on Public Works. They did start doing some inlet work on Sardis Road in preparation for the paving this coming year. And they will be conducting their road survey that they do at the beginning of each paving season so that they can finalize the road list for upcoming paving. So now that the weather is getting close to breaking, hopefully we're getting out of it. They'll be able to do that. Additionally, because the weather has lightened up a little bit, they've been able to do the demo work at Sardis for the new tot lot. So they've been kind of busy now that they haven't been on the roads plowing and salting. A small update by way of the police department. We did have an individual speak to council at the last meeting about the issues on Turnberry Court. So I just wanted to report back to council that the police department did take action there to provide a little bit more enforcement. They've conducted quite a bit of activity there, and they plan to do so for the next few weeks as well. Because that is a pass-through area, and a lot of folks, skip the stop sign or go through it pretty quickly. So they've issued a few citations, a lot of warnings, and just tried to have a presence there. They also spoke with the resident who came to the meeting as well. So just kind of reporting back to council that they did take some action there and make sure that we're addressing things as the community presents them to us. Small update by way of the library. They did inquire again as to who the liaison may be from council, so that is something that they're hoping is decided soon. I know that we're kind of still trying to figure that out, but just wanted to report that back to council. And then finally, from the finance department, the annual audit was completed internally last week. The auditor was here for a couple days. They got out of here a little earlier than they usually do. Normally it takes about 3 days. They were here for a little over 2, I believe it was. So they'll wrap up the final parts of the audit remotely. They'll work with the finance department to address any outstanding items, and then we should have our audit completed rather soon. So those are the updates from the Chief Administrator for this meeting.
If I may, Jason, what day does the library meet again? What day of the month?
The third Thursday. So that would be,
Okay.
the next one will be March 19th.
Okay, as much as my schedule allows, I'll be happy to take that on.
Okay, yeah, that'd be great.
Thanks, Jamie.
Thanks, Jim. Is that it, Mike?
That is all. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you, Jamie.
That brings us to community input. All right, nobody on there for community input, but for the good of the order, anyone wishing to speak at all from the audience? Oh, well, please step forward, sir. There's a sign-in sheet, that's all. If you don't mind, just please give your name and address for the record.
Nathan Zimmerman, 2002 High Point Court in Murraysville. Okay. So I just wanted to, I heard on the news that we were thinking about putting a stop sign on School Road at North Hills Road. I drive through that intersection a ton, and I pulled out from the Murraysville Swim Club side many times. And I've always thought that there was a visibility issue at that intersection, more so than maybe a stop sign issue. So I don't know if anyone of you have been to that intersection and looked at the direction that if you were coming towards Murraysville, but these are the pictures. This is if you were coming from MCP. Basically, there's a bush here and a pile of stuff that blocks the view. And then this is coming the other direction. There is a little pine tree here that also blocks the view. This is the direction I usually come when I'm turning left. I find that to be an issue. So I would recommend that you take a look at fixing a visibility issue rather than adding a stop sign. I did a quick calculation on the amount of gas that the stop sign would use based on an average car. If there's 4,000 cars that go through there every day, and 30 or 70% of them are on School Road, it would use around 5,000 gallons of gas if you added a stop sign per year. Okay. Any questions? Matthew, any questions? You said you were going to grill me.
No questions for you, Nathan.
All right, thanks.
Thank you, sir.
If you want the pictures, you can have them.
Yeah, please, if you could give them the Rideau. All right. Anyone else for the good of the order? That moves us on to liaison comments and committee reports. We'll start down with Michael.
Thank you. Murraysville Medic One had their meeting the third Thursday of the month in January. They've been very active. They're updating their employment manual. They've also nominated Carl Stepanovich to become a board member, so he's still going to be involved. They've kept him around. The big thing that they're going to be doing right now is focusing on their finances. January was a positive financial month for them, which is rare. Usually the first month of the year for them is a negative, but they were in the black just a little bit. They have started their subscription drive, so the week of the meeting, the subscription notices went out. So they just asked that I, to the board and to the public, remind folks that that's going on. Let them know that if they get a subscription notice from anywhere other than Medic One, they should go with Medic One. There have been other ambulance agencies who have been recruiting in Murraysville. But obviously it's important that we support Medic One. 16 ambulance companies in Western Pennsylvania have gone under in the last 3 years. I would also just add many existing ambulance companies, for financial reasons, have many of their ambulances doing transfers between hospitals rather than being available for emergencies. Medic One always makes sure that they have ambulances available when they're needed, and in fact, have been called into other municipalities. So it's very important that they stay financially viable. They're doing everything they can on their end, and they just ask for support of the board and the public while they do so.
All right. Thank you very much. Darren?
Sure, Mac. The Franklin Regional School Board last met on Wednesday, February 18th. A few highlights: they appointed Brian Johnson as the new Franklin Regional High School football head coach. School board approved 3 new elective courses: college prep for musicians, jazz lab, and golf will be offered as a PE course. Young students will benefit from the Dolly Parton Imagination Library, with access to books that really matter in promoting early literacy. Explaining Kate Neidig, who's the director of the community library. Representative Cooper and school board member Deb Wallin recommended bringing the Imagination Library to our community. Local resident Tabitha Riggio has been chairing the fundraising effort to support the program for the last 2 years. The next meeting will be Monday, March 23rd. And the Parks and Rec Foundation Board is meeting next on Monday, March 9th.
All right. Thank you, Darren. Okay.
FTMSA met February 19th. That was a Thursday. And really the majority of the conversations since I've attended have been around planning. As you can imagine, most of the work takes place when the weather's decent, which it hasn't been. So things around the plant that they're working on, they did obviously work on that in the winter, but there's more to do there. pump station work, the main pump station, and then a lot of pipeline replacement talk and ordering. So they're getting geared up, and the next meeting is March 26th.
All right. Thank you, Jamie.
The next Planning Commission meets on Tuesday, March 10th, and the next Library Board meeting will be March 19th, Thursday.
All right, Matt.
Thanks for volunteering for that, Jamie.
Yeah, thank you,
Very
Jamie.
welcome. I'm excited about it.
EAC last met on February 24th. Items discussed were recommendations for planning in Murraysville. Members were provided for review a list of revised options at the previous meetings to finalize for implementation. And discussion was around the Eaton Park relocation. Reviewed the landscape plan, strongly encouraged the applicant to landscape the existing stone landscape beds surrounding the building on the north and east side. Members stated there were previously large trees that had been removed and erosion is occurring on the slopes, as well as a natural lawn ordinance was mentioned during the meeting on the 24th. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Matt. Parks and Recreation meets next Tuesday. That moves us on to workshop items. Under administration, we have the stormwater credit manual discussion. Mike, you want to kick us off with that?
Yes, I'm happy to do that. So as we know, this is a topic that relates to the stormwater fee that was adopted in December in conjunction with the stormwater fee ordinance. The ordinance calls for a credit system. So we worked with LSSE, who provided some original guidance back when we went through the consulting phase. But we also looked at a lot of other municipalities and how they conduct their credit systems. As you could imagine, it varies from municipality to municipality as to how they implement their credit system. With that, staff kind of took everything into consideration, including the demographics here and the proposed stormwater fees that were presented by LSSE. And once we blended all that together, we kind of came up with what seems to be the best approach for Murraysville. So I wanted to review that with council, get any feedback, and see if any changes need to be made. Otherwise, we would like to move forward with implementing the credit manual and then ultimately, unfortunately, getting bills sent out to the community, which, as we know, won't be so welcome, but we do need to get that done. And so in order to do so, we would like to have a credit system in place. So with that said, I'll go through a little bit of the details and background. I can certainly elaborate as much as necessary, but I'll try to give a higher level overview of what we've examined, what we looked at, what we've concluded, and then certainly, again, provide feedback or answer any questions that there may be. To start off, a lot of the premise of the credit manual was built around the fact that we don't have a dedicated team of staff to managing the stormwater infrastructure and the administration of the stormwater fee program. That's not a problem. Many municipalities don't. So we're not different from many other places. But because we don't have dedicated staff, we wanted to make sure that whatever system that we put in place to collect fees, to implement credits, to inspect properties for credit approval, that it was manageable for our staff, at least at the very outset. Certainly as we move forward, we could always change things and amend the program, amend the fee structure. And if we find that we want to allow for more opportunity or broaden the credit system itself, we can certainly do that. But we wanted to try to enter into it with something that was manageable and feasible for staff. So that was kind of the guiding principle behind how we examined the different fee credits that would be available to the ratepayers. So with that, as you may recall from the stormwater fee ordinance, there were essentially 4 categories of properties that would receive a stormwater fee bill. There are properties that fall in the category of what we call Tier 1, which is a half of an ERU. Those are like the condos and similar situated properties. There aren't too many in our community, but certainly we do have them. And those ratepayers are paying a half of an ERU for the year, so that bill is around $42 a year. So there, as we go through this, you'll see there are somewhat limited options for them to receive credit because it's such a small bill to begin with. The next category of ratepayers is the single-family home. It's called a single-family detached home. And under the single-family category, that's where most of the ratepayers fall in. Those are all the single-family homes in the community that are under 3 acres of property. There are several thousand that fall into that category. Those are the folks that will pay for 1 ERU, which is the $84 a year rate. We found that for those two categories, it didn't seem to make a lot of sense to create a very complex credit program for them. Properties that fall into that category aren't going to be the type that are going to be installing swales and storm ponds and things like that. They probably don't have the space on their property, but they also probably wouldn't make that sort of an investment to receive what would end up being a small credit on the $84 annual bill. Any investment they would make would be much more substantial than whatever credit they would receive. So what we found that in some communities, they offer a flat rate credit for a rain barrel. That seemed to be a prevalent thing that we saw in many communities. It seemed like the number that most communities were utilizing was a $40 credit, a one-time credit. So if you would install a rain barrel at your residential property, you could send the picture and fill out the application form. There would not be an application fee. And if approved, and assuming it would be, then you would receive a one-time $40 credit on your stormwater bill. That seemed to be what made the most sense from an economic standpoint for those property owners, but also to be able to manage the inspection process from our end. That's something that we can review a picture, not have to go and travel out to a number of properties, things like that. So that seemed to make the most sense there. That for the ratepayers that fall into that category. The next category of ratepayer is what we call Tier 3, and those are large single-family homes. And under the ordinance, that's defined as any property that it's over 3 acres. And so there are properties that fall into that category that still have a minimal amount of impervious surface, and they still may only pay the minimum amount, $84 per year. And there are also properties that fall into that category that have a large amount of impervious surface because they have long driveways or multiple structures on the property, pavement, things like that. So there are some that fall into the large single-family home category that have a higher bill, but again, there are also many that fall into that bucket that just because they have over 3 acres, they don't have a lot of impervious surface. And again, I'll remind council that everything in the stormwater fee and the assessment is based on the impervious surface at the property, and that's what makes it, again, proportionate to the amount you contribute ultimately to the stormwater system. So the last category is the non-residential properties or residential apartment complexes, things like that, but it's mostly the non-residential side. That's commercial buildings, industrial, schools, municipal facilities, things like that. The municipality, of course, falls into that category as well. It seemed to make the most sense that, one, you could still offer the rain barrel credit to those 2 tiers. You would think that most would not avail themselves of that if you're in the commercial category or the non-residential category. But for those large homes, even though they may be situated on more than 3 acres, they may still want to, again, put in a rain barrel and receive a $40 credit on your bill because their bill may only be $80 or $120, whatever the case may be, on an annual basis. So we felt it would be appropriate to still allow those Tier 3 and 4 to fit into the rain barrel category if that is something that council approves. And I don't know how many would avail themselves of it, but the option would be there. But with those Tier 3 and Tier 4 properties, again, the larger homes, or larger parcels, and also the non-residential parcels, they would have the option to install or get a credit for existing BMPs, best management practices. And those are the things that we've talked about even leading up to the stormwater fee itself, that are catch basins and swales, rain gardens, permeable pavement, all of those sort of things. And so I'll outline some of that as we go through the manual here. I'll try to kind of skim through it, and again, I can stop at any point and answer questions. But those are the properties that we have that available to them to receive a credit, a percentage reduction on their bill. We found that most communities offer around 35% is kind of the number that you receive a reduction on your bill for. So that's the Tier 3, 4 properties that would fall into that category. Again, there are a lot of properties out there that have existing BMPs, and there are new properties are required to have them. So anybody that does fall into that bucket could be eligible for up to 35% of a reduction on their overall stormwater bill. I can go through what some of those would look like, and that would be if you have the, I printed out the packet for council, so you should have it there. If you don't, I can get a copy, a hard copy to you, or pull it up on the screen here. But I'll just kind of leaf through it, starting essentially at what would be page 11. And so if you're on page 11, you'll see at the top there, again, the rain barrel rebate is in that table under the top category for 1, 2, and 3. But again, the language earlier in the document indicates that Tier 4 could also obtain that if they'd like. And then the structural BMP is the one that we would be looking at for most of the non-residential properties. And again, you can see the percentage amounts there, and I can certainly dive into details as to what each of those means. But essentially, it's roughly a 35%, up to a 35% credit on your bill based on the amount of impervious surface water that's being captured there at the property. And again, in a swale and some sort of a riparian buffer or things like that. So in that chart, you'll see riparian buffer credit. It's a smaller amount, again, looking at how the percentages are allocated. A riparian buffer satisfies essentially volume control and water quality improvements, but not necessarily peak flow, so that's why it's only 25. You can see the percentages there up above. So again, I don't want to get too far into the nuances and complicate things, but we also found that there are options for stream restoration credits, permeable pavement credits, things like that, that all should qualify in this program. Additionally, the option for an education credit is listed there at 15%. That applies to schools that meet certain criteria if they offer stormwater education in their curriculum. So that would be obviously helpful for the school if they chose to do that, because they would be one, as would the municipality, they would be one of the bigger ratepayers toward the stormwater fee by virtue of the amount of impervious surface on their property as well. So that's something that we've seen in quite a few other municipalities. So again, I can go through the details of each of those or any of those types of credit opportunities and what they consist of, but essentially what you would be looking at is the type of practices that are required to reduce or minimize the stormwater impact into the stormwater system that either control the peak flow during a heavy storm, they control the volume that runs off of the property anytime there would be a storm, and how much flows off of the property, and then also water quality improvements, and so that, ways to kind of filter the water before it gets into the stream or things like that. So again, all of those are, recommendations from the DEP and their BMP manual, and so that's what most stormwater programs target, is improvements that do those sort of thing and allow for relief or improvements to the stormwater system. So again, the numbers that we settled on internally certainly can be modified. Those are just the numbers that seem to make the most sense following staff review and feedback. And so the way the system would work, and again, you can stop me at any time and I can elaborate further if there are any questions, but the way the system would work is if a property has an existing stormwater facility or they wish to install a new one, they would apply. We would have all of the forms, of course, available on the website or here in the municipal building. They would then provide evidence and engineered drawings of what they have there on their property. Everything that's certified by an engineer would be submitted, and we would review that, conduct an inspection if necessary, and then sign an O&M agreement, an operation and maintenance agreement, so that they continue to maintain that facility, whatever that may be, as they move forward, so that they can still ensure that they receive credit. Some municipalities offer the credit, they make you renew annually. We felt that it made the most sense to allow them to submit annual documentation that the system is performing properly, if it's a detention basin or if it's permeable pavement or some kind of underground storage tank, whatever it may be. They can submit annual documentation, but we felt it may make the most sense to allow the credits to apply for a 5-year window, and then they would have to then reapply, maybe have a reinspection. But we wanted to give people a larger window of time to be able to receive that credit without putting too much of a burden on staff to have to continue to go out and inspect and review, things like that. So we wanted to try to make it a little bit more appealing to the property owners, but also try to limit the burden here internally as, again, this is the outset of the program, and we want to make sure that we don't overwhelm ourselves internally as well. So those were all kind of factors that came into play as we kind of decided on what made the most sense for the credit system. So that's obviously quite a bit of information. Certainly happy to answer any questions. I'm sure there may be some things that I accidentally left out. I'm happy to address.
You did a really good job with that. Thank you. You answered a number of my questions, but one of them I have is if a home is sold and you have a 5-year approval of the discounts and waivers and all that stuff, does it have to be resubmitted?
Yes. So it would be resubmitted for either the rain barrel or the a BMP, a structural BMP. The reasoning behind that is because, again, everything in here applies to the property owner. We would like to think that the next owner would take over whatever that system may be and maintain it accordingly, but the agreement wouldn't be with them, so we would have to reach a new agreement, and then they would be able to continue that credit. Again, I think we want to soften the blow for us here in the municipality. We don't want to make things too cumbersome. So if they submit an O&M agreement, they sign that they're going to maintain the pond or the structure the same as the previous owner, I don't think there would be the need for inspections and things like that. We would just ensure that the credit remains, but we want to make sure that we do have an agreement with the new property owner to maintain whatever it is that's in place.
Yeah. Mike, question. So, for instance, this is more towards like the larger businesses, but when they reapply or whatever, will what they have, their drawings, all that stuff, be part of their account to where they just apply, to re-up it if nothing's changed, or do they have to give all of the drawings and everything?
That's a good question. So it's written in here that, again, one, because we would be receiving annual updates, we would probably have most, if not all, of the information we need. But we did kind of put a little carve out in the language that basically says if we do need new documentation, then they would have to submit that. I would only envision that occurring if, for example, if the DEP changed management practices or regulations or updated the manual, which is something that is kind of in the works right now on the DEP's end of things. So if the regulations changed or the requirements changed for stormwater facilities, then we would just want to make sure we have the most up-to-date and legally operable information.
But if they upgrade something, they would
Sure,
let us know,
yes,
and that would add.
correct. As long as they're in compliance, then that's what we'd be looking for. So we may have the information. So the way it's written is if we need it, then we would have to resubmit. But, again, we want to try to limit the burden on the property owner as well, so that they don't have to continue to submit information and we don't have to continue to review it. But we do want to make sure that whatever system is installed is functioning properly. So that's the primary goal.
Just as a refresher for anybody that's watching, when's this going to go into effect?
So the ordinance is in effect. We do need to send bills out. So we didn't want to send anything out until we had this credit system in place, because obviously that's part of the ordinance. So once this receives, I guess, approval from council, the credit policy, if you will, then we're going to work with companies to get a quote on billing. But again, we didn't want to get too far ahead of ourselves because, again, we didn't know how the credit system may impact the first round of billing. So we just wanted to be sure that we had something in place. We didn't believe that there would be a mechanism for credits at the outset before the first round of bills were to go out, but I didn't want to kind of jump the gun there. So we held off on any billing until the credit manual is in place. Not to mention, if somebody gets a bill and immediately, as you could imagine, I'm sure there may be some folks that aren't in favor of a bill. They're going to be frustrated by that. They may immediately try to appeal whatever that bill is. So we wanted to make sure that something was in place before anything goes out. But once this is approved, then the next step is to go to billing and have the structure in place behind it for anybody that wants to apply for credits or things like that.
Mike, I wanted to ask a little bit about this, the percentage cap. So make sure I'm understanding this. If there's a property owner who's able to demonstrate that, they have a BMP in place or a combination that would reduce the impervious surface that is impacting the municipality by larger than 35%. Under this credit system, they don't get any benefit from that. 35 is the maximum they can get.
That is the way that this is drafted, yes.
Okay.
And I can point to provide some context to that, just to clarify. On page 10, you'll see kind of two examples there on the bottom two charts of how the credit system can function. And essentially, if you have something installed at your property that only captures a portion of the stormwater runoff and runs it through a swale or a basin or something like that, then you would only receive credit up to 35% for the portion that is capturing the water runoff. And again, you could play that out. If somebody has, a large parcel, say 10 acres, and a bunch of impervious surface, but they only have a small little pond on the one corner of that lot, in effect, you wouldn't want to give credit for the entire parcel when it's only a small portion being captured. So it's up to 35% of the captured water or runoff water, or the portion that's running through the BMP. So both of those examples kind of highlight that. Now, if you have a parcel where all of the impervious surface is being captured through some sort of detention facility or some kind of swale or something like that, then they would be eligible, again, up to the 35% for the full amount of the parcel, because all of it's being captured and run through the stormwater improvement. So, and again, this is all based upon our research, but to your question, yes, you could certainly modify that or change that in some fashion if...
I think I'd at least like a discussion on that. Obviously, I don't know what other board members would think. For large property owners, particularly if they're demonstrating that they are not impacting the stormwater system, but getting very small credit for that, I think that we should have a discussion about, whether that's fair. My other, just one thing I wanted to point out too, we are granting a credit here for permeable pavement. How often would we be looking at that pavement? Because the issue with permeable pavement is it works great when it's new. And then very quickly, all of those pores fill with mud and dust and those sorts of things. And if it's not being very rigorously cleaned, that very quickly turns into impervious surface.
That's true, yes. And so for the locations that we do have that approved in the community, they are to submit annually.
Okay.
And again, under this program, they would be required to submit annually. They would be required to do an O&M agreement and then submit information annually that they are maintaining it properly. So another facet of the credit system would be to allow for that oversight for those sort of facilities. But even if they don't apply for a credit, when that is approved in the community, they are bound to an agreement that they have to maintain it.
Any other questions from anyone?
Michael, are you going to lead the discussion on the fairness?
Well, I guess I'll give it here's my opinion, and then but I do want to hear what the rest of the council has to say on this. Basically, if the purpose of the ordinance here, obviously there's two parts of it. We're raising money, and I get that. But if it's also to sort of fairly distribute the cost of the system based on impervious surface, and we're also encouraging property owners to put in systems that help us out by eliminating or reducing that impact. It just to me seems like the credit they're getting for that, particularly when, as you clarified, it's 35% of what they've actually done. So if they're not impacting the system in any way, they're still paying 65% of the fee. In my personal opinion, the balance there is not fair for what this is intended to be, which is that I believe it's intended to be, a fee for an impact, not sort of just a second property tax.
That's right. Yeah, you can certainly. It's certainly something that should be weighed out, and I would agree. I think that to help frame that for staff, one of the things that became apparent is of all of the rate-paying customers that we have, just over 8,000 rate-paying customers, 7,800 of them would be paying $126 or less annually. So the vast majority of customers are very small rate-paying customers. And so the part of the issue then is how do you provide enough incentive for such a small ratepayer to make an improvement that's so substantial that it actually impacts and helps and assists the system? Because again, somebody that is paying again the one ERU is $84 a year. If you're a year and 1.5 ERUs, you're right in that $126 range. You're not going to put in a detention basin or a swale or permeable pavement. I mean, I guess it's possible. Certainly wouldn't rule that out. And some people may even have those things. But by and large, those folks aren't going to be making serious investments to reduce runoff and infiltration. And so it's harder to structure the credit program around what would be the majority of those ratepayers. So then as you get to the top end of that, there are, just to kind of provide some context, there are only 400 ratepayers that pay over $250. And I'm, again, giving you some numbers, so I apologize if I need to slow down. But and only 35 ratepayers that actually pay over $2,000. So the majority of customers are paying, everybody but 35 of them are paying under $2,000 a year. So for those businesses that already installed BMPs and that have fully functioning systems, or for the other developments that have come through in recent years and been required to comply, we try to find a way to make it fair and equitable for everybody across the board. But if the discount is too steep, then it's really only applying to, then it's really only favorable to those high ratepayers, which is really, again, I may have said this, but 65 ratepayers are over $1,100. So it's applying heavily to them, and then to everybody else, you're kind of stuck in that middle ground there. So we didn't want to make it too heavy for the folks that would clearly have incentive to install a BMP on their property, and then disincentivize, or I guess it wouldn't be disincentivizing, but then to not have something for folks that it wouldn't make financial sense or economic sense to install. So I don't know if that kind of
So you said, I know you said you looked at other ordinances. What other ordinances did you look at? Maybe we could get.
Yeah, I can give you an idea.
of
So,
those.
for example, if we look at like next door in Monroeville,
Okay.
they have a stormwater ordinance. They don't offer any credits to residential customers. It's only for non-residential. So they're, again, we don't have to model off of that, but that's the first example, the closest nearby. They, again, even in their credit manual, talk about it doesn't make economic sense for them to allow for credits on residential properties. So only non-residential have the opportunity to get credit there. Other communities that we looked at, Hampton Township is one. They offer mostly in the 25% range. They did offer a 50% discount for peak flow attenuation, like reducing peak flow. We looked at Dormont. That was a pretty good example for us. Again, it's a small borough, so not comparable as far as size of the community. But they were doing something similar with 25% for the BMPs, and then they do the rain barrel credit as well. There is Susquehanna Township, which is a lot of what the language in the credit manual is modeled from. They're at 35% for BMPs, permeable pavement. They have a rain barrel credit of $30 there. They have other credits as well for public education, public participation, things like that. We were a little hesitant to go that far into the credit manual because we would have to, again, try to either create programs or then try to oversee folks conducting programs, and we thought that might be a little bit tricky for us at the outset because we don't have dedicated staff. They also provided language for agricultural use. We looked at the city of Pittsburgh. They have a similar rate to us. I think it's $7.95 a month. It was hard to gather what they offered by way of a credit program, and same with Plum. They have a stormwater program. We weren't able to find really credible information on credit programs in either of those places, so I'm not sure if they even offer.
Well, so one thing to maybe take a look at is whether they're handling it by a credit or they're handling it up front. So Ford City Stormwater Solicitor Ford, they do it by rather than a credit at the end. They take these things into consideration at the beginning when you're determining the total amount of impervious surface. So if there's no credit program, it may be worth checking if that's because they're applying it earlier in the process.
That may be the case. I can say that, again, just to speak to that, for instance, there are municipalities, as we adopted in ours, that offer a discount of 2% at the outset. And so Hampton is one of them. I don't have it on this sheet, but I know that there are a couple others that offer just a payment discount at the outset. So instead of in lieu of a credit, just the early payment, similar to taxes, 2% discount, and then either 5 or 10% penalty depending on the municipality. Ours was set at 10. So there are things like that come into play. I can say one other factor that comes into the equation is what the ERU is for each municipality, because again, depending on if your ERU is low, bills will be much higher because you're paying for less impervious area less impervious surface on your property. In our case, our ERU is a pretty high number. I think that whenever LSSE came in, they said it was kind of in the upper middle range. It certainly wasn't at the top, but I do think in the research we've done, 5,800 square feet of impervious surface is a pretty substantial number compared to a lot of surrounding municipalities. So again, those are all just factors, things to take into account. And I do agree with Michael. I mean, I think that there should be discussion and consideration. I certainly don't want to present something to council and kind of force it upon anybody. Like I said, staff did quite a bit of homework on this, and a lot of time was committed to it, but that certainly doesn't mean we're getting it right, and especially for our own community. So I don't want it to appear that way, but I do think there should be discussion, but I also want to make sure that you're fully informed as to kind of the factors that we weighed out as we examined everything.
Yeah, and again, I don't want to monopolize the whole discussion. I'm sure the council have thoughts. I guess I'll just end by saying I mean, I do think the fee obviously pays, there's a relationship between the impervious surface and what you're paying. Large property owners are going to pay a lot more, and that's fair because they have that surface. I just want to make sure we get the balance right, particularly if we're encouraging them to help us out by installing additional things or maintaining what they have.
Sure.
Fair enough. Thank you, Michael. I also think, too, as I think of some of these larger properties, some of them may take advantage of multiple credits. So take, for instance, a golf course, right? They're going to have streams. They're going to have BMP devices because they're trying to collect as much water as they can to irrigate their property instead of paying for commercial water. So there might be some multiple compounding percentages that a place like that could take advantage of, or even the ones along the stream along 22.
I would agree with Jason. I think that's something we really have to consider. Maybe there's some sort of algorithm that we can come up with that allows certain items to be compounded, maybe that are the most impactful upon the stormwater management, and then make a maximum from those.
You could certainly do
That might be a
that.
compromise.
That is part of what the manual kind of, and again, I don't know if this touches on what you're
Maybe I
describing.
missed it in here.
But when you get to page 11, I'll walk you through it just so you can kind of see. I'm sorry, we'll go to page 12, structural BMP credit. So this is kind of the catch-all for any improvement at a property. If it's not specifically itemized in here, the structural BMP credit is broken down in 3 ways. Peak flow attenuation, which means controlling how much comes off of the property at a peak storm. In this case, we used a 25-year storm event. There are other places that use 100-year storm events. There are places that use the 2, 5, and 25-year storm events. We tried to find a common ground there in the middle. But that is how much flows off of the property during a significant storm event. And then it calls for, in this paragraph, up to a 10%, up to a 10% credit on peak attenuation. I want to make sure I'm stating that correctly. Yes. The next one is volume control, again, falling into that same bucket. And you could do, again, multiple improvements on a property and kind of check each of these boxes. Volume control is controlling the volume that comes off the property, not necessarily in a single instance, but overall, and again, up to 10%. And then the water quality improvements, and that is up to 15%. So those 3 combined, again, what we saw in other municipalities, is you could do various improvements on your property, and I don't know if this is what you're referring to, and then you can they can add up to, and again, what we have in here is the 35%. So if you do want to do something along the stream, maybe that doesn't capture everything, but then you do something over here in the parking lot, and you kind of address these 3 different items. That's what's essentially the BMP manual looks at through the DEP. And so any combination of structural BMPs can allow you to get to that 35%. And again, I think it goes back to the discussion, is 35% enough or not enough? And that's, again, something we can weigh out. But if a property can do multiple improvements and address the flow of the water, the volume of the water, or even the quality of the water coming off of the property, and in turn, they can get up to that 35 with a combination of items as well.
So, sorry, Michael, just to pause right there. If I'm looking at at the table 1, can somebody receive credit 35% and then do a buffer credit below there, riparian buffer credit, and get another 25, or is 35?
The way that it's currently written, 35 would be the max
Okay.
under any one of the improvements.
I got it. Thank you. So
And
that
again,
helps.
that's all up for decision, but that's the way it's currently structured now.
Got
I
it.
think the way the table is structured is confusing.
Yeah, I can address that. We just pulled that from another manual.
That's where I was getting confused. Thank you.
Sure. Well, again, I apologize to council. Obviously, this is the first time we're going through it. You haven't had a chance to read the various paragraphs and the language that kind of supports the overall document. So giving the highlight version doesn't really answer questions like that. So that's Again, apologies to council. But that is detailed throughout the manual as far as what the maxims are, how you can kind of combine them, what you can do to obtain credit, things like that. So again, that's part of the reason why I wanted to be sure I'm able to answer questions. And
I think it's a great first draft, for sure. You guys put tons and tons of work into it, which I think we all very much appreciate. I know it's, it's a big thing to put together for a community. I know that we've already had some input from a business, car business, it's not coming to
Choice Auto.
Choice Auto, about the credit. So my question is, and I apologize because I haven't been online to check, is this document up because it was on the agenda for review by the public also?
no, this document is not. When it comes time to approve the document, it'll be via a resolution. But right now, it's just kind of a draft version to review. Certainly, if you want to make it available to the public, you can. I guess that's up to council. But as far as for purposes of tonight, no, it's just listed as a discussion item, and I'm presenting to you essentially the draft that we have now internally that we're working with. And I would suggest from here, I certainly wasn't expecting any sort of approval tonight. It can either be listed on the next agenda. I would think it would make sense to list it as a discussion item again. Not quite sure that it will be ready for that formal approval via resolution. But that would also allow time to kind of digest what we have here, get a feel for it, and then come back with feedback as to the credit process, the maximums, things like that. So I certainly wasn't expecting council to go ahead and give a blessing tonight. And I do think it would make sense to come back for discussion again on this topic. But when it does get adopted, it would be by resolution. That's the way the ordinance reads. So it would be on the agenda as a resolution to approve the credit manual in whatever form council kind of settles on.
All right. Yeah, I think you guys did a great job as a first draft for this. I think there were great points made of a few possible things to look at. Maybe if anyone is with, I'll be Saturday with one of the Plum councilmen, so bounce it off him, just kind of see where they stand with that type of stuff. I think bringing as much information back as we can allows us to make adjustments. So we'd like to get it right the first time. It seems like this thing is it's a very key to not get too detailed with it. Like it needs to be a little simpler, like you guys have it, but you want those opportunities for these businesses if they're doing the right things to get the credits they deserve for it.
Correct. And I would say, as you come back, what the important things that I think that we would want to hear from council, that staff would need is, again, how you want to structure that maximum amount, whether it's, again, assuming it would be percentage-based, it could certainly be flat fee. That's typically unusual for the higher rate payers. But so it's a percentage-based system. How do you want that percentage-based system to be structured would be something that we would be looking for. Whether or not the idea of the flat rate rebate for the rain barrel or something in that conceptual range makes sense, or whether you, again, want to kind of avoid the flat rate and go to a percentage-based even on those properties as well. That can certainly be done. So those are the two main items to, I guess, to weigh out. And certainly, as you know, you could certainly ask me any questions in the lead up to whatever next meeting we do discuss it. And again, we can put it on the next March meeting if you'd like. But those are the main items that I think that we'll need some clarification on as to how you want to structure that maximum amount. And then secondary to that would be if there's anything missing by way of what could be eligible, what properties could be eligible for credits, and what type of BMPs, I guess I should say, what type of BMPs would you want properties to be eligible for? So we have, again, the ones that are in the manual, that makes sense. But if there are other things, like, as I mentioned, education credits, an education program that is seen in other communities, it seems like it's a little bit more rare and it's maybe a little bit cumbersome. We talked about trying to simplify. But again, those are the things to come back with, if anything, is to, whether you like the opportunities that are being presented, the credit opportunities, and then the maximum amounts. Certainly anything else as well, but those are the main ones.
The only other question I'd have is, with this, like, I know you want to keep everything as uniform as you can, just so it's the same for everyone across the board. But is there, or have you seen in other communities, an appeal type process if you have an extreme outlier? Something like Jason said, that, you know, they're capturing every ounce of water on their property and reusing it onto the property and whatnot. If you have, you know, I feel like this is going to be 99% of the people this would, you know, something like this would work for. If you do have those outliers, is that something that can be done? Is there some type of process?
Can
whether
be.
it be a board to
Yes.
make that decision?
It can be. There are, and I can point to one community, and I can't say I have familiarity with the community, but Upper Allen Township, I think that's out east, but they do have maximums of, and I apologize, trying to read my own typing here, it's somewhat small, but anywhere from 70%, 50, 60, 70% for different BMPs, up to 75. That's an innovation credit, so I'm not quite sure what that is from them. Rain Garden, 80%. So again, I can't speak to that community, but they do have some higher percentage thresholds in various communities. And that may be somewhat of what Michael is alluding to. So it's not unheard of to have a higher percentage. I think it all comes down to ultimately, again, what makes sense for the community that you're in. And in our situation, I agree. If somebody's capturing all the water on their property, there's probably something to be said for that. But we also have to account for the fact that this system is designed and structured around how much water people are putting into the system, but also created so that there's a fund to address the overall stormwater system, which includes the pipes and the culverts and the road ditches and the ponds and everything else that are all throughout the community. So again, the overall water outlay in the community is what, you know, what the fund obviously has to address. So those are the factors that you kind of weigh out.
Durabond, I know, is suing Steelton Borough. They have their own NPDES permit, so they're not actually contributing to the system, and I think they're getting billed about $1.5 million a year in stormwater fees. In Ford City, you know, we had a couple of properties that if this was done mechanically, they were big properties along the river, they would have gotten a bill of about $20,000 a month. And again, they had their own systems in place. So I don't know that Murraysville maybe has those sort of exact sort of situations, but it can scale to crazy numbers. And I think that's probably the only reason why, yeah, some sort of appeal, we're required to have an appeal process, obviously. Those are the kind of crazy numbers that can happen if you just sort of apply a formula mechanically.
And just, you mentioned the appeal process, and so did you, Mac, and I just want to clarify for anybody that's listening, there is an appeal process in the ordinance itself for the fee that is assessed. So if you want to question the survey of your property and the impervious surface, there's an appeal mechanism within the actual ordinance that you can appeal. And then we also put that same appeal language in the back of this credit manual so that it gives essentially the same process. If you wanted to appeal something relating to the credit process, it would follow that same procedure that's laid out in the stormwater fee ordinance, which is it goes to staff or administration for review, and then if they're not satisfied with the result from that, then it can come to council. So it's the same process in both. We wanted to kind of keep everything uniform. So again, you both mentioned appeals. I just want to be sure that the community is aware and the council is aware that there are appeal mechanisms in here so that for whatever determination, whether it's the actual fee itself or the impervious area determination all the way down to the credit system, there are opportunities for folks to question the result of that.
All right. Any other questions from council? I think it was a good discussion, a lot to take in, and bring back anything you guys think up or have questions for. All right, that moves us on to nothing for engineering and workshop items, nothing under community development, nothing under public works. That moves us to the council action items. 13A, can I get a motion?
Motion to adopt ordinance number 1110-26, amending Murraysville Code, Chapter 210, Vehicles and Traffic, for the installation of a stop sign at School Road and North Hills Road.
Second.
All right, thank you, Michael and Darren. Mike?
Yes, council is, I think, familiar with this item. This would be, the adoption of the ordinance would be the installation of a stop sign on School Road, 2 stop signs on School Road, making it at a 4-way intersection. Again, we did have public comment earlier discussing this topic. Council, I think, is familiar to the community. We did have a traffic study conducted. The findings were as follows, that the traffic volumes were greater than the thresholds for a multi-way stop control. The crash data at that location over a 5-year period revealed 14 total crashes, 5 of which were angle crashes. That's essentially a T-bone crash in a 12-month period. However, the study did say that the stopping sight distance was adequate on all of the approaches at the posted speed limit of 35 miles per hour, as well as the 85th percentile speed, that's 43 miles an hour. But based upon those findings and the PennDOT criteria, the traffic study concluded that an all-way stop was recommended at this intersection. It is not mandatory, but it is recommended by a study, so it is, I guess, in the hands of council to make, I guess, an ultimate decision here.
All right, open it up to council. Anyone, any thoughts from anyone?
I have a question. Since, and Mr. Long, it's probably for you. Since somebody at the municipality did request this study, I don't know if it was the police or whomever, it doesn't matter. We requested this study to be done, and it recommended a 4-way stop intersection. Is there any additional liability if this were not to pass to the municipality for future accidents, God forbid? There are any?
It would be my opinion that recommendation of the study and council's lack of following the recommendations of the study would come up in litigation should there be an incident in the future at that intersection.
Okay,
So I think the answer to your question is yes.
thank you.
And on top of that, I know Nathan, Mr. Zimmerman, showed the pictures coming from the opposite side on North Hills, which I agree with you, it seems to be some lack of visibility. And according to this study, it's saying that it's fine. Is there a way we can go back to those properties and say, remove certain shrubs or bushes or trees or whatever that is? It does seem inadequate in my opinion.
So yes, I mean, we have done that in the past. If something is in the right-of-way, then certainly we can ask for that. My understanding is, and prior to my time, this has been a topic, as we know, but prior to my time, they did have a property owner remove some trees in that area to improve the sight distance. But I can't speak to whether or not the remaining trees are within the right-of-way or not. If they are, then I think we would have some ability to ask them to trim or remove. And typically, our Public Works Department does that. If there is whether it's this location or any other location, if there are trees or if there's vegetation that is impeding sight distance, they typically will take action and contact property owners, try to work out a resolution. But in this instance, again, I'm only going based on what the study revealed, and it indicates the roughly 250 some feet of sight distance is adequate. They measured it out for each of these various turns, whether on eastbound or westbound on North Hills Road. So again, to answer your question, could we contact the property owner? Yes. If it's in the right-of-way, we probably have a little bit more ability to have them address it. If it's not, then it becomes a little bit more difficult. But to my understanding, that has been done, and that's why the stopping distances, at least in the study, or the sight distances, at least in the study, appear to be adequate.
Well, that's sight distances, not line of sight. That's different, wouldn't it be? Like sight distance would be how far down you see in order to stop at a stop sign, as opposed to when you're making a turn, if you're looking left or right, that would be line of sight. And I don't think that there was anything in this study that there was a diagram that talked about line of sight. It didn't seem to be, it was only like 10 feet or something on the I can't remember off the top of my head, but it was an odd diagram in there. But one thing, and I understand, Wes, what you were saying about almost a obligatory approval of this because of possible litigation in the future. But I just wanted to point out a couple things that I don't feel that the study actually took into consideration. One would be inclement weather and stopping going down the slope, especially during peak times when like school is let out or rush hour, when there could be a potential for backing up of vehicles at the stop, waiting to take their turn, where now there currently is not. So I want to do what's best for the public and not to have accidents and to keep everybody safe. But I just want to be sure that even with this recommendation, because that was not put into play, what I just said, that the cause that we would approve would actually be worse. You know, the cure is worse than the cause, I guess, is what I'm saying. So I don't know that not being part of the study actually makes it complete.
Have you seen that in other studies, just out of curiosity?
I can't say that I've actually looked, but I can tell you that I went through that intersection traveling today back and forth 6 times. That's how often I travel that. And every time I'm sitting there and I'll say North Hills Road, and then the other part of North Hills Road I'll call North Hills Road Extension, the one that goes up to Window. Just to be clear, it's not east-west for everybody. I am always on North Hills Road for the most part. And I go in both directions all the time, depending upon where I'm headed. But it's always a delay. You're never sitting there. Tonight when I was coming to the meeting, just because of the line of sight looking to the right, if it were not for it being nighttime and the lights, I probably would have gotten hit because the vehicle was probably traveling well over 50 miles an hour. There is a speeding problem on that road also, and clearly the study shows it because it says, well, if you look at both and they average both, almost 20% of vehicles traveling on School Road are traveling over 45 miles an hour. That's more than 10 miles over the speed limit. So there are multiple problems with not just that intersection, but that entire road because they're not obeying the speed limit. Yeah. I mean, stop signs are not really a speed control. Speed limit signs are supposed to be the speed control. So I know that there's problems. I've witnessed several accidents there in the past, and they can be really bad. I just want to make sure we're really having a complete picture of it before we make a decision. Like, what are the other potentialities that can occur if we do put the stop sign there?
Yeah, no, that's a great point. The concern that I have, what you just brought up was a great thing about coming down that hill to have to stop even in a little bit slick conditions. You know, if you have a backup, that can be. But Mike, has there been any discussion to the bus companies? Like, I'm more worried in those peak times of school, in and out, beginning of school, end of school day, the amount of buses that come from this campus here to there, when they're stopping at that stop sign coming from here that way to go up that hill, what's the impact on that? I mean, it could be significant, I would guess. I mean, I think a car is going to be significant. The bus is a whole other story. Like, you kind of come down there, you know, they've got some momentum to get up that hill where you're stopping every bus dead and starting from scratch again. That can be.
I'll say I understand, I agree. As you all know, I'm certainly not a traffic engineer. And I can rely on the information provided to me. The information in the study, to your question, Jamie, or to your point, was the study was conducted based on the PA codes, which have adopted the Federal Highway MUTCD, and the criteria for multi-way stop in the MUTCD is as followed on Table 3 of this study, and they look at, again, the crash experience, site, distance, a transition to a signal or a yield, 8-hour volume. So all those things are laid out there. I rely on this document. I certainly don't have expertise. I do know that there are other stop signs within our community that are at the bottom of a hill. This won't be the first. I agree that this area does have traffic that travels fast. I travel that road every day. I can tell you that I don't love the idea of a stop sign, because a stop sign, it stops you, it slows you down, you got to start back up, and it impedes the flow of traffic. I get it. Every time I come down that hill, either direction, I think to myself, oh man, we're going to have a stop sign here? Oh, I don't know how I feel about that. But the reality is, I'm not an expert. We have an engineering study that used the federal or the state standards. I do agree with Wes that if there is an accident, it does certainly increase liability if somebody's going to point to a public meeting where we discussed a study that recommended a stop control and it's not installed. So to your question about buses, or is it warranted, or do we have concerns about stopping or sliding, I don't have expertise on that, but I do know that we have stop signs in this and other communities that are at the bottom of a hill. I think once people adapt, they will inevitably have to slow down because they will be stopping there. And I don't think there's a concern for vehicles sliding through the intersection more so here than in any other intersection that's at the bottom of a hill. But again, that's not based on any expertise or sophisticated knowledge. I just, I'm relying on the study that was commissioned. We were asked to do staff was asked to do a study or commission one. We contacted the traffic engineer, and this is what we got. So I wouldn't be able to provide insight on the outlook of school buses or people going through the intersection in inclement weather, things like that.
My main concern, just with the context here, is that why I am in support of this is simply from a standpoint of safety, and we can all agree there, right? Speed, how fast we get somewhere, we're all concerned about the safety of our kids and the community, right? I know we can all agree on that. I've been traveling this intersection since 1987, right? In the back of a car, as a passenger, as a driver, now most importantly, as a father. When I see this data and I look at it from eastbound, westbound, north, south, they're coming from every direction. 14 crashes, the majority of them, 8 of them, 4 of them were stop sign, can't control that. A deer, can't control that. But when I look at the 8 specifically, that it proceeded without clearance. And when I think of that, it means they didn't know when to go. In my experience, the goal here, right, is to eliminate what I highlighted, right? Or to eliminate these accidents. God forbid someone were to get killed. In my experience, and again, I've driven this intersection many times in history, it's always been a problem. And there's been times, example this morning, your head's on a swivel, you're coming from North Hills Road, I'm making a left. I think, in my opinion, that's the most dangerous turn. You got people in front of you, what's this guy gonna do? You got people this way coming potentially 50 miles an hour. Buses, right? So in my opinion, if the concern is weather, it's Western Pennsylvania. We just need to slow down a little bit. How we slow down specifically, we should be in control of our vehicles with weather, but allowing a stop sign, a 4-way stop, will certainly control speed, in my opinion, once it's accepted and once people realize it's there. So in my opinion, the most important thing I took from this study, and again, the all-way stop control is recommended to everyone, to the majority of us who have mentioned it. That's what I'm relying on. But I go off of personal experience. And I'll go by this morning. Brings a little bit of heart palpitation when you got to make a left, you know? There's been times I feel like you got to say a prayer and speed through that intersection. And that's something that I'm not willing to take, and certainly not with my children in the car. And with that context, that is why I agree with the traffic planning and design recommendation.
I agree as well. I drive that road all the time. The anecdotal experience, it is not safe, and the data backs it up.
Yep. No, I mean, those are all great points. I mean, the most important things, saving lives, you know, inconvenience to somebody's safety and life is, I think, outweighs it. So, anyone else, council, have any questions, comments, concerns? Ready to
Good discussion.
vote on it? Yeah, it's a very good discussion. Okay. We're going to vote on this. All in favor of adopting ordinance number 111026? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Me, I do not feel that the study is complete. That's why I'm opposing it.
Okay. That motion passes. So that moves us on to 13B. Can I get a motion?
I'd like to make a motion to accept the resignation of Eli Decopoulos from the Murraysville Council effective March 31st, 2026.
Second.
All right, thank you, Jason and Matt. Mike?
Yes, pretty straightforward. Unfortunately, Eli has to resign from council. He's moving out of the community, so he would not qualify as a council member upon doing so. He moves at the end of the month, and so staff is asking council to consider accepting his resignation now so that we can begin advertising for the vacancy, and then allowing less of a window between the time it is vacant and any subsequent appointment that would occur. So by getting a little jump on the advertising, we can get the word out there and get the notices in the newspaper and everything like that.
All right. He put his resignation and he's not here. But we knew he was missing this meeting. Any questions from council on this? I know everyone's kind of talked to Eli and knows what's going on.
So just process-wise, obviously, once we've accepted today, we started the 30-day clock, correct?
My understanding is that, well, based on the charter, if a vacancy occurs for any reason, council must publish notice of the vacancy at least 14 days in advance. So that's kind of the starting process here. We want to publish notice of the vacancy, and then if council does not fill the vacancy within 45 days of its occurrence, then certainly the court could become involved. So
Is that 45 days of the resignation acceptance or 45 days of the advertisement for it?
Starting.
Okay, of the date, days, okay. Yeah. Go ahead, sorry.
no, that's all. I thought Wes may answer that one for you, but yes, it would.
He did, it was quiet.
So that's all. Again, by doing so today, it just gives us a little opportunity to advertise throughout the month of March. Otherwise, we would wait until the 31st to accept it, but want to get ahead on the advertising.
And then as of the April 1st date, we would have 45 days to take action.
Yes.
Okay. All right, we'll do a vote on this. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? All right, we accept Eli's resignation. We'll be sad to see him go. He's done a great job on council and certainly appreciate everything he did. I know he'll be at the next meeting though, so it's not the last time. All right, nothing under community development. We'll move on to engineering. Can I get a motion for 15A, please?
Motion to award a contract to Bruce and Marilees in the amount of $374,200 for replacement of the traffic signal heads, pedestrian signals, and installation of battery backup units along the RT 22 corridor, Route 22 corridor.
Second.
All right, thank you, Jamie and Jason. Mike?
Yes, this is an item, we had three bidders. Bruce and Marilees was the low bidder by roughly $24,000. This is work that's being done under the ARLI grant, which is 100% reimbursable. This is work that's going to include replacement of the old-style LED signal heads, the pedestrian signal heads, push buttons, installation, all of that, the power supplies, for each of the 11 intersections along the 22 corridor and also Vincent Hall. So the municipality will contribute to the project approximately $45,000 for the engineered drawings, oversight, and inspection. But otherwise, the remainder of this grant, or this project is covered by a grant. And just to be clear to council and the community, this is not the replacement of the adaptive system which synchronizes the signal heads. That is a separate grant, that is a separate project that we're working on. But this is just for the actual signal heads, the replacement of the signals themselves.
Mike, these are the boxes too, like the power source?
The power, the uninterruptible power supplies, so yeah, the parts of that, yes.
They moved those way back?
If we could, there are certain restrictions on where those boxes can go, and some of them are certainly in places that seem to get hit more often than others, but unfortunately, some of them can't be protected as we would like them to be.
All right. It's always been my pet peeve. Okay. Any questions from council on this item? All right, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? All right, that motion passes. We'll get that project going. Can I get a motion for 15B, please?
Motion to approve engineering services fee of $29,500 for the stormwater relocation project along Old William Penn Highway.
Second.
All right, we'll go Darren and we'll go Matt.
On this project, Gibson Thomas, we requested Gibson Thomas prepare a conditions survey plan, an E&S plan, Chapter 105 application, utility coordination, everything for this location. This is on Old William Penn, between Tar Hollow and essentially the school driveway entrance, which is right behind the Franklin Plaza Shopping Center, the D's Dogs Shopping Center area. So we have some stormwater issues that are occurring there. We couldn't locate documented easements. We wanted to kind of clean things up there. Public Works is able to do the project to relocate the stormwater line and run it down along the highway. We have some right-of-way access there, or easement access there. But we wanted to make sure that we had proper drawings so that, one, they can install according to the engineered and designed construction drawings, but then also to have official drawings for the stormwater system in that location. Right now, we don't have drawings for what exists because it was done at the best we could tell, at least in the 60s to 70s is when the project originally started. So there have been some changes to it since then, and ultimately we find ourselves now with a little bit of a stormwater issue, and the best solution seems to be the run of the water down along the old highway. And so this is for the engineering services leading to that project.
All right, any questions from council on this project?
Like when you say the old highway, which one are you referring to?
Old William Penn.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
It's like from Tar Hollow up
I
past
got it, yeah.
Lewisburg to the school.
Thank you.
I apologize.
That relocation, are they doing it, it's relocating to the other side of the road or just a relocation on that same side?
Be on the northern side, so not the plaza side, but the
other
opposite side. And again, that's all part of where they're coordinating. We need the drawings because they have utilities, and I think there's a gas line there, some other things, some crossing lines, so.
All right. Okay, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? All right, that motion passes. Nothing under Public Works and Parks. Any old business, Mike? Anyone? Old business, new business? Nope. There is no executive session and nothing under action items, so last motion is all we need.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
All right, thank you, Matt and Jamie. All in favor? Aye. All right, that closes the meeting. Thank you, guys.